Good morning. So, Dr. Dowell Myers is a fabulous demographer in the econ department at University of Southern California. We have been wanting him to be as a speaker, but of course, it's so difficult with his teaching schedule. He's prepared a PowerPoint presentation. He was supposed to get on live, and then his computer crashed. So, wow. We're having to scramble a little bit. If Carl can get on, Carl was going to join via a phone call with Dr. Myers, and I'm going to be doing the PowerPoint presentation alongside of him. And hopefully his words, my screen, will all connect up. So Carl, I'm going to go and share. Okay, so I should be up here. I just need Carl backstage, and we can do this phone call here with Dr. Myers.
Okay, does this work? Am I here?
I'm on the first slide, so if you could get Dowell to Dr. Myers, if you want to start your presentation, and just let me know when to advance the slides.
Okay, here we go. Dowell, you're on.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you see my title slide. I wish I was there with you virtually in person, but I just got an email or a text message from Apple saying they received my computer overnight and they're working on repairs beginning today. So I'm using improvised equipment. Who won the World Series game last night?
Woo!
Who was the winning pitcher? So in case you don't know, I'm wearing my blue shirt.
Yay!
All right, thank you, everybody. Let's go to slide 2. Here's an overview of what I'm going to talk about this.
Can't hear you.
Economic cycle and recovery before COVID. And then slide 4, which is the median household income. These are the long trends from 1989 to 2019, 30 years. Ventura data don't go back as far, so we have California and we have the US. I drew an arrow on there to show the peak incomes in constant dollars that was accrued in California in 2007, and the new peak in 2019. So we are richer than we used to be before the Great Recession. That's good news. In fact, California has had climbing income more so than the U.S. as a whole. Ventura is just about equal to where it was back in 2007. So on income, we've done really pretty good. Nothing to complain about there. A second big indicator, next slide, is annual employment change between 1977 and 2019. The ups and downs of growth. Every time it goes below 0, that is a loss of employment. That's during a recession. You see the 1990s recession was very bad. And then here we can see, and most recently, the big dip in the Great Recession, where everybody went down. The U.S. went down, California went down, Ventura went down. Ventura not as bad as the U.S. or California as a whole. But in the recovery years, employment growth in Ventura has been lagging behind the rapid growth in California, or the rapid growth in the U.S. as well. It's not clear why Ventura is not getting the jobs. Maybe you don't have enough housing for the workers. It's a possibility. One more slide on the cycles. Next one, slide 6. And here we have two different indicators that are being compared. One is the unemployment rate from 2000 to 2019, and the other one is the poverty rate from 2000 to 2019. And these are two general indicators widely used. You see, unemployment got to be even lower in recent years than it was before the Great Recession. So in terms of that measure, we're better off than we were before. And even poverty also got to be lower than it was before the Great Recession. So we went through that bad period. We recovered very well. On the economic indicators, we're actually better off than we were before the recession until COVID started a new cycle. We don't know what's going to happen with COVID yet. It's bouncing back pretty quickly, I hope. The pandemic recession was really sharp in the spring, and we don't really know what the annual data are yet. Fall is looking stronger. It's definitely a recession, but we don't know how long it will last either. I'm not going to prophesy about that. I'll leave that to the real economists. I'm a demographer, and demographers don't know everything, but we do know some things that economists don't know. Economics is the most important thing. I want to know the details, but the trouble is, economists can't predict anything ahead of time. They don't know interest rates. They don't foresee recessions coming. They just don't know anything like that. Demographers, however, can predict the future, because we know that in 10 years' time, everybody in this room here, all of you out there, you're all going to be 10 years older, or you hope so. And that tells a lot, because you go from age 25 to 35, it's a huge change in your career. You go from 35 to 45, you're still getting promotions. There's lots of things we can tell by age. And so we'll use some of that information later. All right, so I want to then turn here, though, to the demographic changes. Slide 7. There are major demographic changes underway, and I'll just quickly summarize them all on slide 8, which is to say, how many different ways are there that the demographics can change? There's lots of ways. There's growth in the middle, but it's due to migration, it's due to aging, it's due to children being born and raised in the state, it's due to racial change. All these things are happening, lots of dynamics, and it confuses people because there's so much going on. I'm going to cut to the chase on a couple things here that I think are illuminating. So next one in slide 9. What we have here is the Department of Finance projections for the total growth of California. And it's been a slowdown. There are old projections back before the Great Recession in 2007 from the Department of Finance. Old projections really had us continuing upward pretty steeply. The newer projections have been cranking the growth down progressively. Every year they have a new projection that's a little bit slower. And that's the green line here showing the 2018 forecast series. And they brought it down. So I can bring it down to just one number. If you go to the next slide, slide 10. Here we have population slowdown and aging. What year does California reach 50 million in population? That's sort of a benchmark measure of like how fast we're growing. How soon do we get to 50 million? The old expectation in the 2007 projections before the Great Recession, the old expectation was we would get to 50 million in 2032. And so I think you want to see what the new expectations are. We're going to have to click on that and advance the slide. There's a box that needs to be pulled away. I hope we can pull it away. I'll pull it away on my computer here. The new outlook was 2055. And then they crossed that out. Nope, correction. The latest projections say we never will hit 50 million. At least not this century. That's the newest projections from the Department of Finance. So things really have been drastically slowing down. It's due to declining fertility, declining migration, declining immigration. Everything has been slowing down in ways that we just wouldn't have expected beforehand. And it's quite astounding, really, to demographers. I'd say we can predict everything. Well, we didn't predict that. Nobody did. All right, but that's what's been happening. So let's move this to slide 11. Oftentimes people think about changing demographics as being about race. And there's a new conclusion here that people also didn't foresee. Along with the slowdown, there's been a slowing of racial change. And we basically have a picture here where we are all minorities now in California. And the white population, the Hispanic white, have been declining from around 40% of the total population in 2010 down to 30% by 2060. The end of the projection series. So it's declining, but not declining as fast as it was before. And at the same time, the Latino population, or Hispanic as the Census Bureau calls it, had been growing rapidly, but it crossed over. I did a circle there in 2011 or 2012. It crossed over, and there's more Latinos now than whites in California, but it's slowing down also and not reaching 50% for the rest of the century, so that nobody is a majority of the population. Latinos are a plurality. They're the largest group, but we're all minorities. And you see below that, the Asian, Black, and multiracial populations are all holding fairly steady in their share. So I think that's interesting. California in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s had dramatic changing racial composition. A lot of people reacted to it politically or economically. And they exaggerated the changes that were going to happen, which did not happen. And now we're more steady state, and I think that's a good thing for stability. People don't need to react, and we are really a prime example of success in America with a multiracial population. We're the fifth largest GDP in the world. We're doing just fine, despite what you might hear from Washington sometimes. I think it's jealousy. And we have a lot of benefits that we gain from diversity. Next slide, 12. Slide 12, migration or homegrown. This is the major political difference that I find in the data. It's not about race, not about aging. It's about migration or homegrown. Before, California was the land of the gold rush. Everybody came from some other state, some other nation around the world. And nobody was born here. Then gradually more and more people were born here. But we still think that growth comes from migration, and outsiders, they try to beat them away with a stick. And that might be just unwarranted. Let's take a look at some of the data. Slide 13. Percent foreign-born of the state population. And I have U.S. also and L.A. County as well. L.A. County, you see, is about 36% foreign-born, but steady. We're projected to remain steady for the rest of this decade. California is also flat at about 27% foreign-born. You want to see Ventura, I bet, too, don't you? You see, the U.S. is still rising, but it's rising in other parts of the nation. We're sort of a steady state, and they are having all kinds of turmoil over adding 5% immigrants in some states, which is silly because we're doing great with 27%. Hey, let's look at Ventura. I think we've got some data here. Next slide, 14. This will fill you up. We have all the big counties in California here, percent foreign-born. This graph, the gray bar is the percent foreign-born in 2000. The red bar is the increase after 2000 in the percent foreign-born. California is a golden state, is shown down below there. The state as a whole, you see that we have been about 27% now, and it was an increase from about 25% back in 2000. Very small change in the state as a whole. Some of the bigger counties at the bottom, like LA, has actually lost some foreign-born share. San Francisco also. But Ventura, I didn't know what color to make Ventura. I hope I picked a good color for you all. I figure Ventura, your logo shows me a lot of sea waves. I thought blue is the right color for Ventura. I hope you don't object to it. I know if I'm doing Orange County, I make it orange, and LA, I make it red, and Ventura, you're the blue county. Hope you like it. but you see pretty steady there. Very, very slight change in foreign-born Ventura since 2000. Okay, so what I'm interested though in is not the newcomers who are from abroad or from other states, but the growth in people who were native Californians, born and raised in California. Next slide, 15. This is the percent California born. Again, the gray bar is the percent in 2000, and then the green is the increase since 2000 in foreign born. There's California as a whole. It was just below 50% in 2000, and it crossed over now up to about 56% California born. This is a monumental change because it's no longer the land of people from elsewhere. It's homegrown. And I'll show you more detail in a second. The next slide is looking at by age. There's Ventura. Ventura is also growing with California born, a little higher than the state as a whole, and something higher than Los Angeles County up above, which was well below 50%, and now has finally crossed over 50% also. The big laggards are San Francisco and Santa Clara, San Mateo. This is Silicon Valley. It's still heavily people from migrating into that economic hotspot from all around the nation and around the world. But the rest of the state has gone heavily California born. And let me just show you the next slide quickly. I know our time is limited. So slide 16 is birthplace by current age in California. The top of the pyramid here is at 75-year-olds. Only about 25% of them are homegrown. More of them came from other states, like me. I'm from Florida. Well, I'm not 75 yet, but I'm from Florida. And then the foreign-born was a large share also. But among young people, among children under age 5, it's like over 90% homegrown. The green is the homegrown. And age 5 to 17, the school-age kids, it's over 85%. The native Californians. And 18 to 24-year-olds, very high. And the key age, I think, always is age 25, 34. Those are your new workers, your new taxpayers, your new home buyers. They are the new parents, the new voters. I mean, 25, 34-year-olds are your millennials. They're a precious asset you don't want to lose and you want to cultivate. The majority of them are California born. And what that means is, if they're California born and they're here in the data today, that means they grew up here. They went to school in California. Before, it didn't matter how well we educated our kids because we just imported our kids from other states, like from Iowa or Florida, or we got the best people out of China or other states, other nations. But now the majority of our young people are really our own products. And so it's the homegrown revolution is a political revolution, has not yet been realized. We are self-reliant. We're dependent on our own investments in the youth, and they are the new people in the housing market. And we'll come back and look at that. Okay, one more slide. Then, do you want to see Ventura? I guess you do. Here's the Ventura County slide. It's actually pretty similar to the state as a whole. Except it's even more homegrown. So your 25 to 34-year-olds are like 65%, two-thirds of them native Californians. And so it's even more true. What I just said about the state is even more true of Ventura. We're self-reliant on our own children who we've invested in. And the idea of chasing away people from outside, that's not where it's at. Where it's at is cultivating the people we have here today and making sure that they get what they need. This is a new national perspective as well. So I'm going to show you one more slide on this, on slide 18, which is the U.S. population, which is going to require comparing before and after. I had to click on it twice. Here's 1970 on the left side, and you see I circled the 65, 69-year-olds, and then I circled the 10 to 14-year-olds. Huge difference between the size. You have very few older people, and you have a ton of young people. The green bars there are the baby boomers. And so there was a lot of them, and they dominated. But by more recently, 2010, if you can click to the right side and see it, the number of 65, 69-year-olds is now equal to the number of 10 to 14-year-olds. We had just as many seniors as young people. It's no longer this pyramid that tapers at the top. It's now a cylinder all the way up. And that number of seniors poses a great problem for the state and for the counties because it changes the nature of services that are expected and required. It's not like before where we had a bunch of kids in school and relatively few seniors. We now have kids in school and a lot of seniors who expect things. They vote, by the way, and they demand things. And let me just show you one more slide on this, slide 19, which is the senior ratio, dividing the number of people over 65 by working age people. And that ratio was pretty constant in the U.S. It was the black line there. No, that's California. I'm sorry, the black line. It was 21 seniors per 100 working age, and was constant for like 40 years until the first baby boomers reached age 65, which happened in 2011, by the way. They reached age 65, and they've been flooding over the line since then and driving up this ratio. And you see how the ratio basically more than doubles in California, more than doubles in all the counties in the state. There's no county that's not. And it's the same everywhere, and then everywhere in the U.S. There should be some bipartisan agreement about this, I think. This trend is everywhere, and yet no politician will talk about it. They don't want to talk about it because they haven't got a solution to stop aging. Don't you wish they did? But they don't, and then they don't want to talk about it. Well, you don't have to stop aging. You just have to accommodate it. And accommodate it means not only helping the seniors, but fortifying the young people at the bottom of the pyramid here who have to lift this heavy load of so many seniors per capita. It's all based on the young taxpayers, the young workers, and the new home buyers and renters. They carry the economic future, and the seniors rest on top of that platform of young. So we need to do both: care for the seniors and really cultivate the young, buff them up so they can carry twice the ratio of seniors that they used to carry back in the good old days before 2010. And it's just a fact of life. There's nobody's fault on this. I always joke about this. You know, the baby boomers, it wasn't our idea in the first place. It was our parents' idea, so don't blame us. But we're here. And the boomers have responsibility to actually cultivate the base who's going to support them, and they don't quite realize they're connected. So it would be helpful to remind them. So one more slide on this, one last slide. Slide 20, growth by age in California, then and now. The top graph is the change in population by age group in the 20 years from 1990 to 2010. And the bottom graph is the change in 20 years from 2010 to 2030. The old growth was really bunched up in late middle age. That's the baby boomers. And then the new growth is the same cohort, but now age 20 years older, and you see how the growth is just dominating the whole state is senior growth. And the politicians have been dodging this. They need to take it on head on, and there's benefits for all age groups of recognizing this. And it's just the facts. There they are right there. I won't say more about them. Okay, it's the trend of housing. Slide 21. I haven't got any good news here for you, I don't think. Not as good as I did on the economy. The housing challenge is worsened. Next slide, 22. And here is the headship rate, which is household formation. It's the percentage of people who have their own separate housing unit. And you see this is just everybody, all ages combined, over age 15 to 24. Everybody over age 15 on the left, and on the right, it's the prime age group, 25-34. Let's just focus on 25-34. And you see how it was pretty stable there until 2008, and then it's been declining in the U.S. It's declining more sharply and continuously in California. And it's really going in the tank in Ventura. That people 25-34 are not living in separate apartments the way they used to. There's a shortage of housing, and they're doubled up. They're back with their parents. They're living with roommates. They're not getting married. There's lots of things changing, and the housing shortage is forcing them to make compromises. And this is especially bad in California. See, the upturn in the U.S. has occurred the last 2 years. Well, there's no upturn in California, and none in Ventura. So we are still taking it. Next slide. This is really full, this next one. Here's the homeownership rate. And by age, and it's declining. There's the U.S., there's California, there's SCAG region, Southern California Association of Governments, and there's Ventura. Ventura data are a little bit noisy because it's a smaller sample size. It gets really bad when I look at other topics. So I'll try to look at it here. But you see the SCAG region in general, the older people over 65, that's the green line, their home ownership rates holding steady. No big problem at all. But once you get below that, age 45, 54 is the little black dots. It's tapering off. Those people are destined to become 65, but when they get there, they're not going to be homeowners like the people ahead of them. And then the yellow dots, or the orange dots, 35, 44 is really diving. So recently rising a little bit. And then the red dot at the bottom, the 25, 34 millennials, their homeownership rate had been rising during the housing bubble years, and then it's just tanked downward. Especially Ventura, it's it's not what it was. So there's a real problem there for young homeowners, or would-be homeowners. 90% say they want to be homeowners, or expect to be, and they're not getting there. Prices are a problem, but also just a sheer shortage, not enough vacancies available for them to move into. So I'll leave that for you to chew on. But let's look at one more, which is the same kind of graph, but by slide 24, by race and ethnicity. So here we go here. And what we see here, I had to clean up a little bit. I took the black line out because it was ping-ponging up and down, up really badly. And I mean, really up and down like 30 percentage points. It's too small a sample size. And also I took the Asian line out because it was too small also. So we're left with the white line and the all races and then the Latino line. So you see the declines are going on within whites also. It's not just in among Latinos. It's like clear what's happened. They were doing pretty good in 2007 and 8, but then they got hit pretty hard with the foreclosure crisis because they got into some bad loans, subprime loans that were just not ill-advised, and that knocked down the homeownership rate. But it's stopped its decline. And you see the rest of the nation, there's a similar racial difference. Again, blacks are the lowest homeownership rate and not recovering as much as Latinos. The red line shows a nice upturn in the U.S. For Latinos, and an upturn also for Asians, and some for whites. We're just not getting that kind of upturn in California or in a SCAG area. There's been a slight improvement in 2017, 18, 19, but not a lot to speak of. So I want to try to cover this is the home ownership side, but there's the rental side too. I want to look at that. Let's turn to rental now. Slide 25 is looking at overcrowded rental housing. Here's the whole nation. This is the percent of renters that are living with more than one person per room. And the red bar is more than 1.5 persons per room. So it's super crowded. And this is all the states. And then I put in Ventura, Blue County there. You can see where Ventura is. And then SCAG region is in the far left of that. That's just like, it's equally bad in LA County, Riverside, and San Bernardino. They're pretty much equal to each other. Really, really overcrowded. Ventura is a little less so. But still, compared to the rest of the nation, you all are still having big problems. And here's the U.S. as a whole on the far left, only about 6% overcrowded, as opposed to Ventura, which is close to 12%, double the national average. So that's the overcrowding problem. And this, by the way, is the main source of COVID transmission. When people talk about density, it's not really population per acre or per square mile. It's how crowded are you in your housing unit? How able are you to distance yourself from anybody who's ill in your housing unit? And when you're overcrowded, you cannot distance yourself. And a lot of these lower income workers who are overcrowded are also on the front lines, and they're essential workers that are exposed a lot too. So the major infections go through whole entire families because of overcrowding. And it has a direct impact on the COVID transmission. Let me just look at one more last thing, which is rent burden. No one cares about this that much, how much you pay out of your paycheck for rent. I know. Nobody's that worried about it, are you? Paying more than 30% of your income is the standard for for overpayment. The U.S. is the black line. It's got a lower share of the population who are overpaying, but it's still like about 50% in the U.S. And here's Ventura and Skag at the top of the graph here, getting close to 60% of everybody, of all the renters, are paying more than 30% of their income for rent. The group of lines at the bottom of the graph is more important, I think, because this is measuring the share of the renters who are paying more than half of their income on rent. Once you're doing that, you're cutting into what you have available for food and for other necessities. So, the landlord gets paid first, and the children being fed comes second. That's a sad story if that's the case. But there's hard budget decisions that get forced on people, and they may be on the edge of being evicted in this coming year. We'll see what happens. We're watching closely for that. But in this Skag region, it's over 30% of all the renters are paying more than half their income for rent, and that's quite a bit higher than the U.S. average, as you can see, the black line. And Ventura is not as bad as the whole Skag region. It's a little bit better off, but still, you got 30% are paying more than half their income. It's a bad situation. So let me just turn now to slide 27, my summary, concluding thoughts. So the economic indicators in Ventura County have fully recovered before COVID-19, before the new recession this year. They had fully recovered from the Great Recession, and in some cases, it actually improved. Total employment had actually reached its prior levels of 2007 by 2014. Unemployment rates had fallen to their previous low levels by 2016, and they kept dropping even lower and lower. So on the employment side, it looked pretty good. And household income and poverty rates had also improved by 2019 compared to the previous good period back in 2007. So on economic indicators, we would judge as fully recovered. Meanwhile, demographic shifts continued. The population aging has just continued like a freight train. And there's a rising number of homegrown residents, which had big policy implications to be acted upon, how to invest more in the homegrown who are young to begin with. And then finally, the housing challenges, they have worsened. They affect everyone. There's falling household formation and home ownership under age 55. Rent burden overcrowding are most acute for low-income renters, and those haven't rebounded to the previous low levels. And we're really haven't figured